Not right now.
No, not at this time.
But don't worry, Tony. You know that we will be mounting a forensic attack on all of the alleged forensic evidence, but except for the stuff that doesn't point to our client, obviously, which everyone seems to forget. As a matter of fact, there is no geology that points to our client. Remember, they took all of her pairs of shoes. They looked at every single soil under her shoes and couldn't find anything that was a match under her shoes. They've done all these tests, and all these tests have exculpated her.
You know, just to take a step back, you have had an impressive team assembled here to help Casey Anthony in this case, and I know you don't talk about how you're being paid. I wonder, are you being paid by anything other than the publicity attached to this case?
Well, we don't think publicity is payment, but we don't discuss payment at all. But, you know, publicity isn't payment for any lawyers. All of us are not in this case for publicity. Believe it, we can get publicity from other sources that are much more favorable than any of you guys could ever give us.
Back to the Kronk theory for a second. I mean, there was the Zenaida Gonzalez theory that had been thrown out previously by your client. Are you alleging in any way that Kronk had some connection to Zenaida Gonzalez?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Well, the question about whether Roy Kronk, are you suspicious whether Roy Kronk had any connection, perhaps kidnapped Kaylee from Zenaida Gonzalez?
I don't think you saw that in our papers, so we're going to rely on what our papers said about it.
Just to take a step back, how is Kaylee doing? I checked the jail logs. I see that Andrea's been visiting her quite a bit. And, you know, how is she doing as a person sitting in that cell, you know, knowing that her life is on the line for the death of her child?
She's scared. I mean, wouldn't you be scared? She's scared, she's sad, she's grief-stricken, and she's terrified.
Physically, is she doing okay?
Reasonably well, I would say.
Okay. There will be those who say that this is just a defense feint, that it is an attempt to distract attention from their client, Casey, and point it to Roy Kronk as the potential killer, at least someone that you believe could be evidence of third-party guilt, as you say. Is this just a tactic?
It's an attempt to do the state's job for them.
That's right.
We brought them evidence, and we're just 4 lawyers. You talk about all the people on our team. We're 4 small lawyers and 2 tiny little investigators. We don't have 1,900 lawyers. We don't have unlimited resources. We don't have unlimited investigators. And we can bring up this evidence in the past couple of months. The state should be doing what we're trying to do. Instead, they pointed the finger at this poor young girl who did something very, very, very stupid and in terms of not reporting her child missing, and is going to be paying for it with the attempt to kill her life. But they should be doing what we're doing. Look at their witnesses the same way you would look at our witnesses.
Would your client be open to any sort of plea deal if the death penalty were taken off the table?
That's not something we can discuss at all.
She has said she wrote an affidavit saying that she believes the state is upset with her because she did not take a deal.
She did write that affidavit, or she did make that statement, but as I said, that's just something we can't discuss. That would be inappropriate.
One of the things you've attacked early on in this case was the publicity, and in fact are going for a change of venue because you believe the well is so poisoned here in Central Florida, at least with the media climate. At the same time,
Correct.
You're going on the national media climate and making allegations or statements or talking about these motions in a way that, of course, would support your client. Are you not doing the same thing you were accusing state and defense and the detectives of doing early on?
Let me answer that because I've been probably the most vocal. The local media, with the exception of some of the reporting that we've seen from you, Tony, and that's why we're here, has taken everything they've seen at face value or the leaks they saw early on and publicized them improperly against our client. Here, we are at the national media because at least they will give Casey a fair shake, and all we're asking people to do is keep an open mind. Just keep an open mind. Remember, she is presumed innocent, and right now, more than ever, she deserves to have that presumption of innocence. So please keep an open mind.
You know, one thing I tell people here, too, is when they ask me, do you think she's innocent, do you think she's guilty, I say it doesn't matter. It's whether the state can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she did what she's charged with. And she's charged with intentional first-degree murder or felony murder, the death of someone in the commission of aggravated child abuse. When you cut this case down to those bare facts, I know you don't think there's much of a case, but tell me why you don't think there's much of a case when it comes to that.
Well, for one thing, there's not even a cause of death. There's not even actually evidence to show that her little girl died as a result of a homicide, that it wasn't an accident, or that it wasn't natural causes, or that it wasn't some reckless behavior on the part of someone. And so that's a pretty good reason why they shouldn't be able to sustain a first-degree murder charge, and why they sure shouldn't be allowed to ask for the death penalty at all.
So is it possible that come next year, come next summer, this time next year, Casey Anthony could be walking the streets of Orlando a free woman?
That depends on what the jury does, doesn't it?
And you're doing your best to see that that happens.
We're doing our best to see to it that she gets a fair trial with real investigation and real hard work and real motions practice and challenging, the evidence the way that it ought to be done. That's what we're doing our best to do. She has a right to, and the people of the state of Florida have the right to have the real evidence really challenged in court for her in order to save her life. And the idea that there's something shady or weird about actually interviewing witnesses and talking to people and digging deep and trying to find out what really happened, as though that's somehow cheating, that's what a good lawyer does. And that's what we're trying to do for our client, who is literally depending on us to save her life.
And before you even get to that case, Andrea Lyon, you have to defend her. You've entered an appearance in the check fraud case, also a change of venue motion in that. Do you think how do you think that's shaping up for January 25th?
I don't think I should comment on that right now.
Is it possible a plea deal will be made in that case?
I'm not going to discuss plea deals or possible theories or anything like that. It would be inappropriate, and neither Linda or I are going to do that.
Okay.
But we love you anyhow, Tony. We love you for trying.
I just have to ask. Now, attached to the appendix of the motion today are the DVDs that Mortimer Smith, his interviews with several of these witnesses.
Correct.
Some of the things they say are very speculative. When I heard about this, I thought he was the killer. Others, will be subject, of course, to cross-examination if these witnesses are allowed by the judge to even come forward. But do you consider these interviews damning? I mean, how would you characterize these interviews with, for instance, the daughter of the former girlfriend?
I think they're pretty damning, yes.
And very sad, and very, very sad. And I give these women great courage. I mean, we always talk about the courage women have to come forward. These women are very courageous. They're not fly-by-night people. One of them is very sick. She's dying of cancer herself. And it took a great courage to come forward and say what they know, which is the truth. To say what they know and tell the truth. And they should be applauded for coming forward. But we shouldn't have been the ones to find them and get their statements. The state should have.
And of course, the trial is the search for truth, and we will continue on that journey toward a trial right now set to begin next summer. I want to thank you both for joining us this morning, and have a good time in New York.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Bye-bye.